Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head to head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
After two consecutive oval races, the INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series finishes off 2026 with a trip to two road courses. And you, the fans, have spoken for our penultimate round of the season for the titles setting up showdown. We head to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio. Hi folks, Arjuna Kankipati, joined alongside as ever by the ever-wonderful Kenneth Bueno. And KB, what fun we've had those last 2 weeks, stretching our legs on the ovals. But now with the title on the line, it's time to head to two road courses to settle the crown.
We've had the dichotomy of ovals versus road courses, who has been the best on both sides of the ball, but really now it comes down to how consistent can you be at two very difficult to drive road courses, and it starts tonight at Mid-Ohio. These final two will be characterized by the elevation change and a ton of tire wear as well. Very abrasive surfaces. That'll surely bring some fun in the strategy, and that makes these drivers think a lot harder if they want to defend or attack for the championship in a few weeks.
And therefore, qualifying as ever going to be important, but strategy, I think that's going to be crucial. Let's talk about, well, what we saw last time out when we went racing at what was a short oval, but with plenty of downforce. The Nashville Superspeedway delivered a bit more of a pack-style race. Yes, Powerslide Motorsports team hype once more. A couple of their drivers showed up in qualifying, but for the first time ever, Redline delivered in qualifying on an oval. And KB, as we navigated the two wide and on occasion three wide scenarios, a couple of key talking points that stood out. Restarts were a trouble, and the deeper we went into the race, the hungrier our drivers got.
Yeah, we had a lot of those single file restarts, and a lot of it was described by chaos at the back, drivers ending up getting checked up, but this was what it was all about. Pack style racing at over 190, 200 miles an hour. And then we had a bit of strategy midway through. Kwame Scott with probably the best save of the season, entering pit road without getting a penalty, but Redline showed up for sure. Arjuna, they put themselves at the front, and even though this race was basically full of all this close pack racing, and yes, the contact occasionally, and yes, the occasional bump on the restart, it was really the matter of putting yourself in the right place at the right time and hoping that the chaos would open itself up right before you get there.
And so one of the drivers that put himself in the greatest position was Diogo Pinto. He battled Alexander Van der Sant to take the lead. But behind Jacob Oster, a bit of drama as Adam Blocker got tangled up with one of those red line machines, and it led to a sprint to the end. What more could you ask for? Pinto would dominate the low line as the likes of Oster and some of our Nexus Esports entries would search up high as well. But as we ran our way back to the line, took the apron as well, but Diogo Pinto held on to grab victory, his first in 2026 for our defending series champion, and pipping the now points leader Michele Costantini to victory. However, for Costantini, the run on ovals, a first and 2 second place finishes have set him up here. 15 points to the good over fellow IndyCar community member Phil Kraus. However, Romanidis, McEwen, Leo and Pinto Bueno, those will be the drivers we're keeping our eye on to put the pressure on in these final 2 races.
And the last 2 have fully been all about Phil Kraus and drivers like Alex Russell. In what way could they step up in several places to be able to put themselves as a force in this championship? But no one has been able to put a candle to Costantini's run since Indianapolis. Since winning that race, he has been on a tear. And we mentioned how Pinto won the strategy last season by being the most consistent driver. He's done that in a first 2 races schedule that was really described by chaos and parity and qualifying not mattering. It's been that way for Costantini, and I think 15 points, although it's pretty narrow entering Mid-Ohio with 2 races to go, Arjuna, as we were talking about before the show, he has a lot more to defend than attack, and that's sort of a good place to be in.
Diogo Pinto sits just outside the bubble, need to be within 50 points heading to the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca for our final round of the championship. We've had 6 different winners in 6 different races, and therefore would you be surprised to hear that in terms of pole sitters, well, only one driver, Michele Costantini, has been able to repeat. And so as we land here at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course, it was between this and the Barber Motorsports Park KB on our fan vote, and our IndyCar fans have had their say, and we return to Mid-Ohio after Eduardo Leo grabbed the win here in 2024.
We had a ton of chaos here last season, especially out in Turn 1, but such a unique and wonderful road course out in Lexington, Ohio. 2.25 miles, 3.6 kilometers on a clockwise circuit that is 13 turns long. You look at the second sector, all of those bends after Turn 4, China Beach, and the S's and Thunder Valley going to be characteristically hard to pass at. The keyhole, turns 1 through 3 are going to be the best places to watch for. Track had the first road course race back in 1962, and like you said, Eduardo Leo has won here before. He did it back in 2024, and he's one of those that is prepping himself up for at least a chance at pushing himself to the championship in these final 2. But with all the elevation and the abrasive track surface, this is going to bring that proper challenge of strategy and being disciplined enough to put that car on all 4 wheels by the checkered flag.
And what a race we are going to be in for. Slightly warmer track temperatures might mean strategy between the alternate tire and the primary tire could be pivotal as strategists once more take center stage. But let's take a look at the starting grid for the penultimate round of the 2026 INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series, and this says a lot. First page of the results from qualifying, dominated by Redline as they try and support Luke McEwen on his run to the title. But for the very first time, Gustavo Ariel on pole position will be alongside that McEwen machine of the 96. Pinto and Labigra split row 2, while Coiter and Webster row 3, both hoping for some redemption after last week. Josh Thompson ends the sea of Redline at the front, and Alessandro Bico becomes the first non-Redline machine in the Williams F1 team, gaining 77. Vasilios Speliotis, his best qualifying effort of the season, sees him split row 5 with points leader Michele Costantini, while Dan Amor and Michael Romanidis will share row 6. We are talking fine margins through the field. 0.2 of a second down to Jaden Munoz, winner of course on the streets of Portland earlier this season. He's alongside of Peter Berryman, someone that's had a, well, unfortunate championship to say the least. Phil Kraus has got some work to do, but we know he can carve his way through on the road courses. Nicholas Matteo to his outside in 16th spot, while Sotomuto, the second of the Williams F1 team gaming machines, has David Toth, the Hungarian, to split row number 9. Bookending the top 20, make our way down to Ricardo Rico, and that other red line machine, Eduardo Leo, loses a couple of tenths in qualifying, and it puts him down 10 rows on the starting grid. Esteban Rodriguez and Tamas Shimon behind 21st and 22nd. Alex Betts will be frustrated with that qualifying effort all the way down in 23rd. He's alongside of Jacob Oster in that team hype and Powerslide Motorsports entry. Rob Malechka, Pablo Espez behind 24th 5th and 26th, while Kwame Scott and Adam Blocker split 27th and 28th respectively. Bal Impala, Alexander Van der Sant as we get towards the tail end of those with times on the board. A little bit further adrift of their competitors. And just at the tail end, Alex Russell, Elliot Veyron, and Matteo Kenzer. 3 cars with no times on the board. We roll behind the pace car, and KB, a chance for us to talk about Thrustmaster race analysis. This race 40 laps in length, and we're not entirely sure what to expect from strategy.
We're not sure what to expect from the tire game, because at plenty of the other road courses we've seen this season, there has been a difference, a delta, an advantage to the red alternate tires versus the white wall, the primary tires. But it doesn't seem to be that big of a difference here tonight at Mid-Ohio, and it looks like for the case of the 40 laps we have here tonight and the 90 miles that we'll square off with, drivers are going to be searching for that exact halfway point, 20 laps. So whether you're on the reds or on the main white wall tires, it's going to be about nursing your car all the way to that halfway point at least before inevitably thinking about pit road. Remember, push to pass is in effect. You have to use both tire compounds. So after 2 weeks on the ovals, got to refresh ourselves back to the road course school and what these drivers have to do. And that's the graphic that shows you what it's like right now. Primary tires will give you the long-term advantage, although it will not have short-term speed. The alternates will have that short-term boost, but then will fall off much quicker. So top 7 on the primaries. Look at how many drivers are on the reds. Not many, Arjuna. So everyone's banking on that long-lasting tire for the start.
Now, if you were to run in clean air by yourself, the theoretical fastest strategy, maybe not with these slightly warmer track temperatures and winds, but would be to start on the primary tire, run maybe 22 odd laps by yourself, and then switch to the alternates. It's only, though, about 1.5 seconds, maybe faster than some of the other choices you have. We're not talking big gains, and traffic around a track as short and congested as this could end up being pivotal as we head into the penultimate round, the 2026 INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series. It's redlining control here from Mid-Ohio as they look to support Luke McEwen on his charge to the title, and we get the green flag dropped at the Mid-Ohio Sports Car course, and instantly that Williams F1 Team gaming machine gets the pressure put on it from behind as we work our way up towards the keyhole at turn 2. Single file, as you'd expect, KB, between the teammates at the front, and they're all chopping and changing behind as we have a bit of front wing flying through the air at the keyhole.
And that might have been one of the red line cars in the middle of this top 10, and you were watching Vasilios Pelletsiotis, the blue Mercure car, just looking to the inside, trying to put himself in the top 10 again. That's what you have to do, and a huge send, and he'll crash out. Sam Kiter to the entry of China Beach. That's turn 4. Had the grip at the entry of the corner, Arjuna had the inside line, but it appeared he got there too late. The corner narrowed up, and the 2 cars collect each other, and Sam Kiter going to be the first red line car, most likely out of the race on lap 1.
So consecutive races for Kuyter where he will be classed as a DNF. It has been a torrid season for him with only 1 result in the top 10. Every other race outside of the top 20. Lap 1 will be complete, and it's still red line 1 through 5. Josh Thompson passed by Alessandro Bico, and Dan Amor making a rocket of a start actually, and jumping in front of, well, Michael Romanidis, but more importantly, Michele Costantini, still down there in 10th position as we see the first users of the push to pass. 200 seconds allotted to our drivers through the course of this race, and already green lighting up as these drivers take advantage. It's not just push to pass, remember though, push to defend, using it strategically across the 40 laps of racing. And already look at these gaps starting to build through the field as once more we dive into China Beach.
And you know, we mentioned in several other series how tire set limits can play the strategy for the drivers and the teams, and thinking about when they have to slap on tires and what they may have to do. Push to pass is the very same way. You get an extra 50 to 60 horsepower, so you just literally press a button, the car adds on the extra power, and then you're on your way, trying to either defend or make it a pass on a racetrack like you're watching Dan Amor attempt to do here in this 3rd sector through Thunder Valley and moving to turn 12 and turn 13. But again, you have to sparingly use it. And here in Mid-Ohio, there's a more predictable way of using it, because you watch this main straightaway, you go into turn 1, this left-hander that kind of rises up a little bit. You reach a soft press before coming down to that little ditch there off of turn 1. Right here, these long straightaways, then off the keyhole, entering turns 3 and 4. That's where you're going to see a lot of that push to pass be implemented over the course of the race.
What we're seeing right now, though, KB, is the difference in tires on full display around the outside. Vico tries to make the move at the keyhole. But you can see Cooper Webster, no draft at play here as they give each other a wide berth. No side drafting games down into China Beach. Oh, Webster slams the door shut. That was a bit aggressive.
And again, that's one of those cars, the Williams machine of Alessandro Bico, who made his way up from 8th. He was the highest qualified driver on the alternate tires. So again, he's looking to kind of break up this whole red line coupe that's building up at the front of this field. Here's a look at Beliziotis. He's that blue car. Huge send entering turn 4. I mean, it didn't look like he was going to make the apex, but the contact had already occurred between himself and Kuitert. So by the time the wheels touch Arjuna, they kind of hop over each other, and no matter what wheel input you put in, the car's not going to turn. They're both tangled together, and so there's nowhere to go but straight up into the grass. And we know a thing or two about the grass. There's no grip. You just slip right into the tire barrier.
Yeah, and you could tell there for Beliziotis, there was some frustration. He was not necessarily content to sit behind the rest of the red line train. Look on board with Gustavo Ariel as we look up front, but then a look at Phil Kraus, who is down on pit lane, and we'll get you a replay as soon as we can. But the driver that finished second in the points in 2024, well, championship hopes have just been extinguished. Back up as we roll our speed through turn 5. We'll head down into the S's once again. And Cooper Webster is playing that rear gunner action right now. Didn't join us for the first round of the season. There was a power outage in Australia that robbed him of a chance of competing. And last week, KB, Cooper Webster had those dreaded Windows issues. And so very much now, he is playing the team game. He's not doing anything wrong, though. We are getting closer to the crossover point between the tire. Anywhere from lap 8 to 11, the primaries will come good.
And you know, when you have a season like that, that's littered with a lot of these hardware and internet connection issues, at some point, especially for a team as large as Redline, you become a different player in the game. You know you're not going to run for the championship. Kind of hard to make up your season with the shorter campaign that we have here in 2026. So what do? You become a team player for Redline, and you say, if you're going to become the main defender, that kind of Ryan Newman-esque driver that's hard to pass on the racetrack, and someone who will kind of play along with the strategy and help you distinguish yourself out from the rest of the competition, that's what Cooper Webster is going to be like, and that's exactly what he's doing right now. Straight up wall that he's putting at the moment with these two drivers right behind him, and it looks like we finally do have a look as to what happened with Phil Kraus. And this was entering Thunder Valley, turn 8 and turn 9. Kraus, who qualified 15th. I mean, it's been all about road course success for Kraus trying to do that here in 2026. And it's just a large stack of plenty of cars get slowed up as a result of that checkup going up the hill. And a car goes up and over into the gravel, a huge piece of contact. And that's lap 1, by the way. So Kraus already down pit road and out of it.
Yeah, so Adam Blocker was the car that went aerial, but it was Sheza Esports. I couldn't quite figure out which entry it was, but David Toth, I think, got tangled up. He's been down to pit lane. Live points on the right side of your screen. Based on qualifying, we did kind of think it would end up being between Costantini and McEwen, and it's now 14 between the two of them. Costantini in 13th right now, has lost 3 positions from the start of this race. However, as we were talking about before we went on air, KB, for Costantini, as long as he finishes inside the top 10 in the next 2 races, he has got a very good chance of forcing McEwen to win the next 2 races in order to rip the championship away from him.
Yeah, he needs 2 home runs for McEwen in order to collectively make this a proper championship fight. You need to look at a driver like Romanidis as well. The best road course finish on average of everyone in this field at 7.2. Costantini, though, is not too far behind at about 9. So you look at what Romanidis has been able to do on the road courses, and you think 3rd in points, chance to win this championship. And then you look back in the mirror to the last 2 oval starts, top 12 finishes, where the qualifying effort had not been there for the Drago Racing entry. It was a lot harder for him to pick his way up through the field. He, like McEwen, also has to have a miraculous 2 races, including tonight, in order to put himself in that position. And that's where Costantini sits most comfortably. He did a lot of that hard work on the ovals, Arjuna, and has leveled out his playing field midway through the season, and it's allowed him to have a bit more of a relaxation and gap.
Wins at Indy, 2nd at Phoenix and Nashville. That's what set up Costantini in this great position. Average oval finish, 1.67. Look on the bottom. Ride with Adam Blocker. Oh, runs into Jacob Oster first, and then from there, I think the left front already has taken some damage. And, well, the Indy Next race engineer for Chip Ganassi Racing, his season in the real world gets underway in about 13 days' time. Well, he's still got our season finale next week to try and put up a decent showing to close out this 2026 season as we recapture the fight for 5th position. Webster now 1.7 seconds off of Florian Lebigre, but maybe more crucially, it's about 3.5 seconds at the end of lap number 8 to Gustavo Ariel at the front of this queue. And remember what I'd said slightly earlier? Onto lap 8, by the way, end of lap 7. Crossover point between primary and alternate tire, anywhere from lap 8 to 11. So keep an eye out here now for the likes of Bico, Amor to slip back, and for Costantini to maybe start making his way forward. And next up in the queue will be Nicholas Matteo in what could be a crucial move, dispatching of that white and red Drago Racing entry.
And that will be a huge win for Cooper Webster, who has pretty much been that defensive stance right in front of Bico and Dan Amor, because when that crossover point hits, I mean, that speed's not going to be there anymore. And to compensate for that, you look for the push to pass button, but as soon as you take your eyes off of the main straightaways and all these corners and you look towards that button, well, that car's still in front of you and the grip is not there anymore in the middle of the corner. So you have a feeling to look at where your options lie. And so just to push it to lap 8 is enough defensively for Webster to kind of lean his shoulders back a little bit, let his teammates take control of the front. And for Michele Costantini, I mean, he's dropped 3, but that's the discipline you have to have in this style of racing. When you say push to pass, you save your tires, you wait for a moment like this. Costantini has trusted his speed all season long, and it's given him great results ever since he won at Indianapolis.
He didn't get the win, though, at Mugello, as much as he wanted to maybe grab the win in his hometown race. It was fellow Italian Edoardo Leo that was able to capture it on strategy, let's not forget. Very similar to what we're seeing now when there's 2 calls, some starting on the primary, some on the alternate. It was Redline that chose correctly in the end, started on the alternates. Leo stormed to the lead and never really looked back. Meanwhile, Luke McEwen, who the oval stretch by no means took him out of contention. However, 9th at Indy, 17th and 20th at Phoenix and Nashville. For the driver who led the points after the first round of the season, of course, our winner of the opening round of the season, hasn't found it so easy since then, and looking a little bit relaxed right now, I would say.
Yeah, definitely in a good position. And you watch the top 3, and combined, they have wasted about, 13 push-to-pass seconds, 5 seconds used for McEwen, 7 seconds used for Diogo Pinto. So it really has been actually 12 seconds combined between those 2 cars. And just because they had such a gap up at the front of this field and they've been able to stretch their legs, have a bit of that distance to play with, and because Cooper Webster has been so defensive these first few laps, it's allowed that gap to just naturally grow. And with the tire wear, it's going to get even more troublesome for Bico and Amor to press the attack. Good fight for 18th and 19th. This is Mateo Quenzer is 25, Kwame Scott right behind, and what a performance for Nexus Esports Arjuna last week. Esteban Rodriguez had a top 10 finish, his best finish of the season. Kwame Scott, also a fantastic effort, his best finish since Long Beach, way early in the campaign after a ton of the field crashed on lap 1 and lap 2. So to see Kwame Scott after a whale of a save and a comeback from Nashville working into the top 20 here, and just this back half of the battle shaping up.
It was an interesting excursion for Nexus Esports last time out. That first time I think we've actually been able to see them carry forward that eNASCAR experience onto the ovals. Of course, big smile there from Kwame Scott, but by no means the stock car and an Indy car on an oval, set up in the same ways. It's not as simple as, oh, they're quick in eNASCAR, they'll be quick in IndyCar as well. But at the end of the day, they have shown some speed, and maybe more importantly, they're having some fun. The eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series qualifying series has just picked up once again. That's a grind. This is an opportunity for Scott and for several other drivers to do something slightly different. And you know what? He is enough of an Indianapolis fan that in the background of that camera shot, he has got the speed limit sign you can buy from the Pagoda shop. Cross out the slow speed limit slap on 215 miles an hour. Dan Amor still tucked up behind Cooper Webster, but guess what? Bico has set himself free in 5th.
He finally got around. That was at the back skirts of turns 12 and 13, and then into turn 2, the keyhole here at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. That's where Webster pointed his nose to the inside in an attempt to potentially wave Pico out of the way in the first 2 lanes and maybe have him wash out of the exit of turn 2, but that really has opened up that gap. And again, passing lap here, we passed that crossover point, so for a driver like Dan Amor, going to get increasingly difficult to try and make up speed at this juncture of the race. And then you turn to that push to pass button, and you can do that right now, but then you think about it, all right, well, if I waste so much of it before halfway here in this race, what can I play with other than some fresh tires at some point that will inevitably wear down later in the race?
Here comes a move as sliding up the inside goes Michele Costantini, finally able to break the barrier in front. That was Nicolas Matteo in the Drago Racing Machine as we work the 12th lap of this race. Going back to Amor for a second, joining Kawanda Esports last year, or last championship year, he was with, of course, the Apex Racing team. Kawanda Esports, it's a very different lineup that we see them competing with in 2026. Remember, in 2024, they had the likes of Jordan Caruso, and I think 5 of their cars on the grid. Now it's just Elliot Veyron and Dan Amor, which is a hard task for just 2 drivers to combine and find speed. But they've done a good job so far as they battle for their share of the $50,000 prize pool in this INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series. Winner to walk away with $20,000. That went to Diogo Pinto in 2024. $12,000 for second. But all the way down to 15th, KB, there is a little bit of prize money paid out.
Yeah, there is, and also the chance for these final 2 races to allow some of those drivers to just squeeze into the top 10, because from 11th to 15th and then 6th through 10, that's a difference of $500 more. That's a pretty sizable difference in the cash prize you get at the end of the season. And you look at those drivers hovering around the point scenario at that point. Alexander Spetz, Nicolas Matteo, who we talked about not that long ago, behind Costantini, Gustavo Ariel, who's the race leader. So if he's able to capture most laps led, winning the race and dominating, he can be able to squeeze his way up to the top 10. Robert Malechka, you know, Alessandro Vico, who's top 10 right now, a chance to also move up a couple spots in these final 2 races. So, I mean, it doesn't make that big of a difference when you think about, you know, the overall championship, and they're not fighting for the title right now. But if you can go away with $500 extra, I think that's a pretty good win if you're able to recover your season in the way that you can.
As we ride with Jaden Munoz, you've just reminded me in terms of recovery, Jaden was the one that picked up the pieces when Luke McEwen and Alexander Spetz decided to run into each other twice at the Portland International Raceway. Luke McEwen might take umbrage with that characterization of events. He was on the outside, driven into, he would potentially argue. In front of Jaden Munoz, got a couple of drivers from the Drago Racing camp. Peter Berryman, not had the easiest season by any means for a former iRacing world champion. And slightly further up the queue is Michael Romanidis, remember, in the points conversation, but unfortunately, with now Luke McEwen sliding in front of Gustavo Ariel, Diogo Pinto, Florian Lebigra still running in the tire tracks as we close on the halfway mark in this race. It's not quite advantage McEwen. Costantini will still have the points lead. But Costantini's got some work to do now, KB, to ensure he's got a bigger gap heading into WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca.
Well, if you're Luke McEwen, like we said, you have to hit a home run, a grand slam in these last 2 races, and if you can do that tonight here at Mid-Ohio, that's the most you can do. This is the replay that was off of turn 2, the keyhole, and then right on the push to pass button, using all of that extra horsepower, 50 to 60 horsepower, to move on by his teammate Gustavo Ariel, and then slide on to the inside at entry turn 4, right as you get to China Beach, which really, the second sector of Mid-Ohio, that's the hardest place to pass at because of all this narrowness and a lack of runoff. And look at how much that did for his championship fight. That's what you have to do. Even if Costantini still has the upper edge and the high ground right now, McEwen has to do literally whatever is possible to go out and win these races, and now he's within single digits given that pass for the lead. So it works out right now, 5 laps before halfway.
And I think Costantini now thinking, right, if I get a top 10, that's solid points on the board. Anything more than that, and I've made life a lot harder for McEwen. However, as we watch Michele, car off into the grass in front of him, a little bit nervy there for other championship contender Michael Romanidis, who gets passed by Jaden Munoz as a result of that. Dan Amor blinks at the end of lap 15. That is as early as I think you can dare to pick. He has decided that 25 laps on those prime tires may be a bit of clean air, KB, is what his Coanda Esports machine needs on the run to the checkered flag.
Yeah, and you want to do whatever you can in the top 10 to differentiate yourself over the group. And of course, with Amor using the alternate tires to start, it's almost like a forced hand. You have to fold in that sense, and you have to give away your cards, and you won't win the chips on this round. But you're hoping that the compensation for that as we go through halfway is that you can cycle up in front, distance yourself from the pack behind you, and then ultimately try to hold on to that gap for as much as you can. But knowing the sector of this race, I think he's realistically looking at another top 10 approach and thinking if he can put himself back there through the cycle, that'll matter a ton. But for Costantini, I mean, this is pouncing attack. If he could only see the points right now, I'm sure maybe he's getting told it in his ear that the gap is 4. Maybe not panicking at the moment, but he knows there's fresh meat right in front with Romanidis, Munoz, and Berryman all collected together. And given the Romanidis mistake entering turn 11, that's right in the place where Costantini can try and fire, as Alex Van de Sande appears to have trouble in the back. And there's one of those other cars on pit road.
Remember, Alex Van de Sande had such a great showing last time. Really thought he could have fought for the win if not for the unfortunate incident. Meanwhile, top 7 all on the button as they stretch their legs down the back straightaway, which of course in the real world, right around here is where the cars actually start the initial race. They start on the back straightaway. Slightly different starting procedure to what we often see. It means the run through here, China Beach, often a little bit more interesting. As you see the lap times for Costantini, he is not far off the leaders, and on occasion when he's had a sniff of clean air has been quick, but no clean air to be found through the S's. Definitely not a passing opportunity. And what he's hoping for is Romanidis to peel off to driver's left-hand side, working through the long final corner, turn 12, and down to pit lane, but does not play ball. In fact, in many ways, Romanidis' probably best strategy here, KB, is to frustrate Costantini, cost him some time.
Yeah, and he's got more push to pass as well, even though he's got the worn down alternate tires. Costantini, because he's been having to push so much in this run, now that he's lost a couple spots to begin the race, he's now only at 149 seconds eligible left on the push to pass, and Romanidis is going to use it right now. So this is the proper textbook move of defending while somebody uses the push to pass to play the offense and attack entering turn 4. As long as you can maintain at least a 0.3 of a second gap, maybe 2 car lengths full entering the corner, you understand that maybe there's not going to be a situation like Belitsiotis and a big dive in turn 4.
Today's coverage of the INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series is brought to you by Thrustmaster and the T598 steering wheel. Feel racing sensations like never before with T598 and its direct axial drive motor, the new generation of direct drive. This motor allows the perfect clear wheel rim motion with no cogging for high-fidelity force feedback. Scan the QR code to learn more as Thrustmaster drives you into a new era of sim racing. On board in this pit sequence, Alessandro Bico, the next to dive down towards the pit lane as well up front. Our 4 red line machines all exit off the keyhole in unison. Good stop for Bico. It was only just updated, 8.1 seconds, and he's going to end up, I think, in front of Dan Amor as well.
He will, and what we've seen this entire race are players like Bico and Costantini and Romanidis and Dan Amor looking to neutralize the superpower, but for right now, they can only watch in silence over this pit road sequence as we approach halfway, given how dominant this sector of the field has been for these red and blue red line cars. And you think about what they did in the last couple rounds, Phoenix was such a struggle for them, Arjuna. They qualified poorly at the very back of the field. Took them such a long time to build up any semblance of rhythm. And then by that point, I mean, you were only mustering a top 15 and maybe on the occasion a close top 10. But then at Nashville Superspeedway, what a turnaround it was for them to make their move. And there are more drivers down pit road. Romanidis is going to be one of them, following Jaden Munoz. So I guess that theory that we had, Arjuna, of him trying to frustrate Costantini didn't last that long.
I think he got past, and that was part of the reason why he did dive down to pit lane. Now, we will reach the halfway mark of this race next time by. Do the red line contingent at the front split this call up? Do they send a couple of their drivers, maybe a Florian Labigra, maybe a Gustavo Ariel on the alternate tires into that pack and maybe frustrate them slightly? Do they leave McEwen, Pinto, who is not out of the points contention yet if McEwen has some struggles in the latter half of this race or in the final round of the championship? Do they ensure they have got track position heading into the closing stages of this race? The answer is, well, all of them will stay out on track as Redline extend the tires.
I just don't think, Arjuna, that Redline's going to think about splitting it up, at least in a large sense. And if they do, it's going to be maybe a one-lap difference. It isn't going to be that disastrous or that big of a semblance. And for Eduardo Leo, you know, he's at the back of the field. So that's the real call for him and part of Team Redline. He qualified deeper in the field, and he just overshot his pit box, so he's going to lose a bit more time. But yeah, he's going to come down. I just don't think anyone from up front in this main Redline group is going to come down separately, because they've already built up such a large gap in front of the rest of the field. I think they can trust each other that if they do come down pit road, at least within a lap or two of each other, and come mostly together, they will cycle out nicely, and whatever opposing forces will be around them, I think they can overwhelm the opposition with just the sheer numbers they have up at the front.
And what a lineup it is for Redline, right? You look at the 5 still out there at the 6, including Josh Thompson now, still out there at the front of the field. They just competed in VCO Infinity, 24 races in 24 hours. Gustavo Ariel part of the team with Diogo Pinto, Enzo Benito, Sebastian Jobe, Cooper Webster. When between a 5-driver lineup, you've got 3 Porsche Esports Super Cup champions in that lineup. There's a reason why Redline have continued to stake their claim as the best team in the world of sim racing, showing us why they can adapt to these IndyCar machines as well. So Tomuto, next down pit lane. Remember, Dan Amor came in at the end of lap 15, so theoretically, KB, we could see Redline go another 3 laps or so and then decide to throw the alternates on. Their lap times are pretty good. McEwen just put in his fastest lap of the race last time at the line.
Yeah, that's because they've been up saving the whole time, and because they haven't had to use push to pass all that much over the course of this race, and because they haven't found any other drivers other than their own teammates. It's given more comfort overall, and they put themselves in a little bit of a bubble, apart from maybe Cooper Webster, who's been more in the trenches and doing the dirty jobs. But for everyone else, I mean, they've had to relax. They've had their chance to get into a muscle memory, get into their rhythm, and that has allowed them to just spread apart and just be so quick at the front of the field. And again, just that comfort in staying out, whatever they can do. But back to your point about just Redline's contingent and how fantastic they've been. You know, I saw a quote from Max Verstappen not that long ago about why he built a team like Redline and why he supports this group. And it's for a lot of these drivers that, you know, maybe financially won't have the chance to run in real life, given their upbringing or anything. And then you see this, you know, the way they're able to use sim racing and use these series as a chance to platform themselves and be extremely skilled in what they do, because they are, and maybe get a chance to run in real life as well. Do you watch the battle for third?
Well, remember that Chris Lullen, part of the Redline crew, not only won the Spa 24 in the real world last year, the GT World Challenge Europe Championship in class as well. He's just won the Asian Le Mans Championship. Kwame Scott, by the way, KB, this was something I had noted. He is, well, smiling, I'm sure, from cheek to cheek, but part of the reason why he's having so much fun as the fastest lap gets punched in from Eduardo Leo is he has burned through 147 seconds of his push to pass so far in this race. He's got 53 left for the 17 laps we've still got left to go.
Yeah, I was counting on my fingers. I'm like, 17 laps? He still has a long time to go around Mid-Ohio with 53 seconds to play with. I think it's just because he started so back in the field. I think he's just looking to find any place to put in a push to pass, gain horsepower, and then have the edge over the competition through this strategy. But I mean, it's going to come back to him to bite at some point. Everyone else is going to have more than him, and even in the small portions where drivers have been able to use their push to pass, they're going to jump on him very quickly, ate up through all of it. And now here comes Alessandro Bico, who should be cycling back into the top 10 around the inside in turn 1. I don't know if I've ever seen the push to pass get eaten up like that so much a little bit after halfway, but I mean, leave it to Kwame Scott to put it all out there and try that strategy.
Hey, he was about as hungry as I was for push to pass, as I was for dinner after getting off an 8-hour flight, so I don't blame him. For more information on this series, log on to iracing.com/INDYCAR-esports. One more round to go. Maybe go look at that rulebook and figure out how these drivers qualified into this series. Might see you in 2027 as well. Yeah, Kwame Scott, that is the Arjuna style of push-to-pass approach, that is for sure. What is rationing? Not so sure about that. He's fighting with Jacob Oster, who's just dived down to pit lane, and so I think we are in this one-lap window now. On to the 25th lap of this stint on primary tires for Redline. A bit of traffic at the front, but it's not much. The fact that McEwen is starting to use the push-to-pass with a bit more freedom indicates to me that they're in hammer mode right now, or Supermax mode is maybe more appropriate. And down to pit lane, 15 laps on the alternate is what they're looking to do.
And we're looking at 10 cars that have still yet to come down pit road. Biko's that first one that's trying to cycle. He got past Dan Amor, drivers like Berryman, Munoz, Sormanidis, a lot of the folk that came down pit road. That's where Biko's looking to attempt to attack and make that. But with all that push to pass that they're using right now, again, it goes back to using the gap to your advantage and just doing what you can whenever you have to come down pit road. I think Arjuna, they're looking for the edge of that window on the alternate tires. If they can make it with 11 laps to go and then pit on the alternates, they can save as much as possible and just be good to the end.
Well, I think that what we're seeing is the primary tires aren't losing speed. McEwen was a 10th off last time by, but we are at that fuel window, I think, where you cannot extend any further. Those that weren't saving, Webster, Thompson, Costantini, diving down towards pit lane, and I think McEwen, Ariel, Pinto, Labigro will be one lap offset and dive in on the next lap. This is important, KB, because it means at the end of the race, when the likes of Biko are going to have primary tires that we know are quick, the alternate tires won't be as worn for McEwen, who's got to win this race to maximize his championship hopes.
That's exactly what I think Redline's doing, and they're putting it to perfection. If they can try and test trial those two drivers at the back end of this main group, come in at the perfect sweet spot window for those alternate tires, I mean, they'll probably save a little bit at the beginning of the run on cold tires. They'll nurse it for maybe a few laps, but by the end of that, they can push, they can run it to the end. And by that point, the distance has been so large over the course of the night, they probably won't have to deal with Alessandro Biko's any say at what could be a change in position through this top 10. But I will tell you that at this point, and this is where they're going to do it, with 14 laps to go, just 3 laps after that crossover point for the alternate tires. And what's really going to be curious is where this entire thing cycles out, because Cooper Webster had already come in. How far does he cycle through if he has a chance? And here come some others.
Cooper Webster ended up in front, though, of Alessandro Biko and Dan Amor. So, KB, it's go back to lap 5 in this race when Biko and Amor were trying to put the pressure on with their alternate tires. But now it's roles reversed. Webster will have the better grip in the early stage as they rejoin the racing surface. And there's a big gap that's starting to build as it chops and changes up towards the keyhole. Pinto in front of Ariel, Labigra directly behind them, different wheels to make it easy to identify them all. But look at the gap that Webster's already got to Biko, KB. It's over 1.6 seconds out of drafting range as Labigra slips past Gustavo.
That's the strategy. I mean, that was pretty much textbook. To go in the lap early, put yourself right in front. They've had Webster be the defender all night long. And if he has fresher tires, a better car right now, you've got 13 laps to go. If he can hold on for the next few laps while Biko continues to press on the attack, and maybe force him to use a lot more of his Firestones, and then he would like it right now in this race. And then it's just ball game. Redline can just play with the distance they have, and then at some point, like we're seeing right now, jostle for position between themselves. I mean, this is a team effort, but they're all on their own goals, looking for either a championship or some more points down the line. So you're going to see a lot more switching for position, at least in just a more respectful way between them, because they're not being so aggressive. They understand they don't want to take any teammates out. But, I mean, that was the strategy to put on. And with Webster doing what he did right there, that was more than enough. And you think about where Josh Thompson is, also with fresh tires compared to Dan Amor, so he can start to put more of a buffer and slow these two down as well.
And look at him work the exit of the keyhole, swing out wide, cut back, get on the power slightly early. He's got fresh alternate tires as well here, so this is a benefit. Amor, 12 laps on the run already. Very defensive into China Beach. It's slightly off camber on the outside, and Thompson all 4 wheels into the grass. And now onto the kiddie litter on the right side of the track. Well, race control's got something to look at the end of this race.
And that's such a narrow point of the circuit. I mean, we saw with Belletsiotis, he attempted a dive on the inside, but it's such an awkward apex. It doesn't widen out. It just kind of shortens up a little bit, so you have less of that asphalt to work with. And if you have one car that slightly misses the corner, like you saw Amor do just a bit there, slid up wide, it forces Thompson into the grass, and then, you know, you're switching back. There's more grass on the other side, and a tire barrier much closer to the racing surface. That is such a heartbreaker for Josh Thompson. I think Redline's going to have him right on the Christmas card list for his hard work tonight, but it won't be rewarded with a good finish, it looks like.
Fastest lap for Luke McEwen is almost 2 seconds quicker than what we're seeing from most of the primary tire runners right now. A 107.177 versus right around a 109 for most of the field. Let's take a look at some of the action on the bottom, and I think this will be a great look at, well, Josh Thompson trying to make this move. He's going to be pushed out wide. Amor definitely does not leave him any room, and then it's reminiscent of one of the IndyCar starts about 3 or 4 years ago when Santino Ferrucci almost drove into half of the field. Josh Thompson did a good job to minimize the damage. Would have been very simple for him to run into Amor as he rejoined the track.
You know, you and I, our minds just went 2 different places, because what I thought was kind of the equivalent of Team Canada and curling, just using their finger to nudge the stone. That kind of almost looked like what Dan Amor had done. I mean, he did miss the corner entry because he's on the inside and he has to narrow up and shallow up his entry, but he just slowly slipped up, kind of nudged Thompson a little bit outside, and I mean, that's where the grass comes up. It's such a difficult point to make a pass. You have to be well in front of the car, either the inside or the outside, to properly get around the car and clear yourself through China Beach, because that's been the talking point all race long. You really don't want to be making passes or side-by-side right here, and this gives you a proper look. That's that shallow entry in turn 4. You go through 5 on the inside. You go down the hill through 6, 7, 8, and then you go to Thunder Valley at the exit of turn 9. Look how narrow that is. Look how fast this corner is going up the crest of the hill with rear tire spin. Last thing you want to do is be side-by-side, and reminds me back to the Portland days. In turn 10, you don't want to be side-by-side there at the speeds you're going at and at the angle you attack the corner.
Hey, you do have some heavy braking zones here, but you are right. A lot of these corners are medium to higher speed corners. That last sequence relatively slow, but by no means is it slow enough for big sends necessarily in these Dallara IR18s. One of our Drago Racing white and red entries. Nicholas Matteo drops behind Jacob Oster. Remember, Oster and Kwame Scott were fighting just before they came down pit lane. It's allowed an undercut for Oster. Put a car between him as well, between Matteo and Scott. 10 laps left to go, though. We are in the final stages of this race.
And there's Matteo as he weaves his way through turn 1. And that's 18th place he run out. And that's Jacob Oster there, who captured his best finish of the season, by the way, last week in Nashville, on top 10s on all occasions. He's part of that Team I5G camp, or at least he was last season in 2024. But he's good friends with Brendan Lichtenberg, former member of this series back a couple years back in 2024. And I think our producer and director, Cisco Scaramuza, had told me before there was a sim racing injury where, you know, Lichtenberg was kind of set up in his car. He looked down at his wheel in an attempt to kind of just take the gloves off and, you know, reset. And all of a sudden someone just hits him from the back and the wheel just jerks it right into the chin of Lichtenberg. I don't think I've ever seen an injury quite bizarre like that. I think Oster probably sending him the well wishes, and as he runs 17th right now. I wanted to bring up that story, and I think Cisco nudged me to do it as well. So a shout out Brendan Lichtenberg right there. Hope he's doing all right.
Brendan is doing okay, I can confirm. He said that fortunately his force feedback is turned down quite a lot when I was chatting with him about that. So top tip, firstly, don't crash into anybody on purpose, even after a race. It is against the iRacing sporting code, as much as you might laugh at that. It is a silly thing to do. 2, keep your force feedback low, because if it was Sebastian Jobe that had happened to, boy, I don't want to think about what would have been going on there. Change made as Sota Muto swaps places with Tamas Shimon, who moves up into 13th spot. Remember, Muto was one of those drivers that started on the alternate tire. It's been out there on track now for 10 laps on these primaries.
And also, just a final point on that, if you have a direct drive wheel, always be aware of the dangers of it at any given point, because you have a car hits you, something else happens, that wheel could very well break your wrist. I'm scared of direct drive wheels. I'm going to be real with you. I'm just not skilled enough to handle that yet. But, yeah, of course, for Lichtenberg there, Hope he's doing all right. And probably, of course, in the streaming world, as here are all the red line cars. You watch Pinto and Gustavo Ariel as they all push through, and this is the final edge of that push to pass with 8 laps to go. All for crucial points, of course. Pinto winning last week at Nashville and just trying to get any edge he can in these final few.
You can see currently on screen those push-to-pass numbers as we continue to dwindle down in this race. Rationing them out, as we mentioned on numerous occasions, is always a difficult balance to strike. When we used to have lots of regular Monday night, just regular iRacing official races, coverage of that on RaceSpot TV, we used to call the go out there and burn your push-to-pass approach the Yao Bash strategy, because he used it to great effect. And then on the other side of that, you would have Adam Blocker, who would save all the push-to-pass to the end of the race, and sometimes not even use it all up. Live points, KB, still so close.
It's so close, but you think of what Luke McEwen's doing right now, and you have to feel a little powerless, because it's still 10 points, even with all the laps he's led, even with the win he could capture here in the next 6.5 laps or so. Michele Costantini is just performing well enough, and that is such a great position to be in, because you put a little less pressure on yourself, and you can trust your car, you trust your instincts, and knowing Costantini's skill alone, he did all the hard work and really powered through all those ovals where plenty of other teams have struggled, and a lot of their sore points came at that area of the schedule. Costantini rose up to the challenge, wanted Indianapolis, and the last 2 weeks handled his business. That's what we call standing on business, really, for the Italian here. And 7th place, and as long as he can keep it clean, that's really where you want to be, where an average position is just good enough for a title.
It's been an interesting couple of years for Michele. I distinctly remember the 2022 iRacing Indy 500. It was the first iRacing Indy 500 that I was commentating as the play-by-play, but I was also producing, KB. And when we had the race to the end, Brandon Trainor versus Costantini, as Costantini continues to pick up the pace. But I remember seeing the look of disappointment, the look of heartbreak on Michele's face when he crossed the line to finish 2nd. He is a driver who has put so much passion into this IndyCar over the years, and while yes, he's raced with the likes of Coanda Esports, the likes of the Apex Racing team, and most recently Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team, this is what he loves. And that win that he got at Indy, I cannot tell you how much it meant to him. It probably meant even more than winning the championship would at the end of the year, because that's how special a place Indianapolis is.
And his face showed it all on that final lap and the drag race to the line. And you always think with the way these Indy cars handle on iRacing, you can never quite predict what it's going to go like, what that sequence is going to be like. To have your nose ahead first at the line, to see his, bit of a mix of relief that he got there first, but also the excitement, the elation, and how he's enjoyed this season. The hard work that he's put in to master the oval side of things, the hard work he's put in to be balanced on both sides, and has always been a threat on both ends, but he's refined both on the skill level, and it's really rewarded him with a fantastic season, especially after the first 2 didn't go his way in Portland and Long Beach. How Costantini has turned things around, I mean, it's remarkable. And again, still another race to do, still 5 laps to put in here before he can really solidify a championship. But that's a fantastic story, especially after the struggles and the bad luck of last season that peaked its way at a big win at Milwaukee.
Sometimes consistency, the luck, it finds you. There's that famous quote in golf, you make your own luck. The implication is the more you practice, the more that you'll get better. And maybe that's true on iRacing as well. This is the driver's eye view in the Dallara IR18. The more you practice in sim racing, the better you get, the luckier you get. Never been a better time to jump behind the wheel. Start your iRacing career today by logging on to iRacing.com, where new memberships are 40% off. And boy, do I have to say, this is one of my favorite views in all of iRacing. There are some replica steering wheels coming out that will put that wheel in front of you, in your hands, in your sim ring at home. Feel the true connection of sim racing and the IndyCar. And why is that so important, KB? As much as we're here talking about serious sim racing, something else coming out this year. the NTT IndyCar Series game in partnership with iRacing Studios. Very excited to hear more about that.
That's going to be super cool, and with the way that iRacing has collaborated with the NTT IndyCar Series on refining the details of this IR18, and over the last few updates, you know, I've seen the reception from the drivers on the sim base, and they love it. They love the way this car drives. They love the challenge that it brings. They love that refinement that really makes the IndyCar Series so great in the real world, is how those drivers can wrestle these cars and how unique they are in their setups, how unique they are in the way they drive and downforce, and how they're able to do both street, road, and oval courses as well. It's so cool to see that happen, and to have iRacing and IndyCar collaborate on a video game, you know, sort of like they did with another primary racing series in NASCAR not that long ago. I think IndyCar is going to get its great treatment, and the fans of IndyCar who have been waiting for a console game for so many years, they're going to be so happy.
You can see Luke McEwen's recent run. The oval's definitely not his bread and butter, although compared to the rest of the Redline team, he's probably got a bit more experience after the years he spent with the Apex Racing team, paired up with Brandon Traino, the only back-to-back winner of the iRacing Indy 500. And of course as well, but with Peter Berryman, another staple and fixture of those iRacing Indy 500s. Another game coming out, by the way, that KB and myself are very excited about. Release date officially confirmed for iRacing Arcade, releasing 3rd of March on Steam, coming to consoles later this year. I can tell you what, the 8-hour flight I've got back from Germany to the US this weekend, iRacing Arcade would have been just about perfect for that. 2 laps left to go, though. Luke McEwen in control as he carves up to some traffic. 2.8 seconds, the gap back to Diogo Pinto. Costantini's hit a bit of stall now behind Biko. Looks like 7th might be the best that he will get. So let's check in with a fight between Jacob Oster and Kwame Scott. 17th and 18th positions respectively, KB. Remember, Kwame burned so much of his push to pass in the early stages of the race.
But the difference between these two isn't that large. It's only 7 seconds to the advantage of Jacob Oster. So if Kwame Scott can hold on just for a little longer, and if he's naturally faster on the racetrack, this is a closer battle than you may think if you just look at push-to-pass numbers. And Scott has been hounding on Oster's rear wing for a little while now. Only takes 1 bobble, especially in that second sector off of turn 4, where a slide, you know, a missed apex could make that difference. And with all those corners so closely congested to each other, you miss one, you're going to miss half of them, and that's going to really hurt your lap. So Kwame Scott, I mean, he's laser focused. He was smiling earlier on tonight. I think he's fully locked in at this point to get 17th.
Smile after the checkered flag, potentially, depending on the results, as Luke McEwen starts the final just under 2-mile trip around this Mid-Ohio sports car course. And Michele Costantini was the first driver to get 2 pole positions this year, and it set him up to grab the championship lead. Luke McEwen looks set to grab 2 wins this year, the first driver to do so, KB, and it will set him up as our one of our championship contenders in a week's time.
And just a great drive. Again, this is what you have to do. And when your back's against the wall, you got to rise up to the challenge. And McEwen did that. It was a fantastic pass on Pinto. And now just a few more corners for McEwen to wrap up his 2nd win of the season.
The effort in qualifying told the story that Redline knew that this race would set out their stall in a week's time at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. They locked out the front 7 in qualifying, but only 1 driver was really expected to rise to the front as Redline managed the situation. 2 wins in 2026 for Luke McEwen as this INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series heads to its season finale, and with maybe 3 as our favorites. Here comes Costantini, the points leader, who does a good job of climbing from 10th to 7th at the time with a checkered flag.
That's all you got to do. A great finish given the circumstances. Tomas Simon, Esteban Rodriguez, 12th and 13th. We'll come back to this battle between Oster and Kwame Scott. Still close in these final few corners. 12 and 13 coming up. Could be a dive here from Scott, but it will not be enough. Jacob Oster holds on to 17th, and a great fight between those two, back and forth mentally. But back to that point for Michele Costantini and Luke McEwen. It's going to be fun at Laguna Seca. That is the real test. I mean, you told this track was very tough. Laguna Seca may just be even tougher, and a perfect place for a finale between 2 of the titans in our series this year.
one of my favorites, my former home track, the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It's one in the iRacing INDYCAR series that often comes down to fuel saving. Next week's race, not expecting that to be the case. I think a sprint to the end between maybe Michael Romanidis, but definitely Costantini, and this week's winner, the first to return to victory lane after winning on the streets of Long Beach. Luke McEwen does it again at Mid-Ohio. He leads Redline to the line. Pinto, Labigra, Ariel and Webster the top 5, with Alessandro Bico breaking up the monotony. Michele Costantini does what he needs to in the championship fight, in front of the likes of Dan Amor, Peter Berryman, a couple of the drivers starting on the alternate compound of tire, and then down in 10th place, Jaden Munoz. Michael Romanidis, not the easiest of days for him in 11th. Esteban Rodriguez climbs up 9 positions, as does Tamas Simone, to 12th and 13th respectively, while for Eduardo Leo, no luck on the day. Behind him, Matteo Kenzer, 16 positions to the good, in front of Jacob Oster, Kwame Scott, Nicholas Matteo, who drops down to 19th, and Alex van der Sant, who rounds out your top 20. Alex Russell, still hoping that maybe a top 7 on the championship points is on the cards for him, finishes in front of the pair of Sheza Esports machines. Balak split from David Toth by 1 lap. Rob Malechka also 1 lap down. Before you get into the DNFs, the likes of Phil Krause, Josh Thompson, Ricardo Rico, Alexander Spetz, Adam Blocker, Sam Coiter, as well as Vasilios Belitsiotis, Pablo Espez, and Elliot Veyron. As ever, we will enjoy a good chat with our race winner and see what his mindset is like with just 1 race left to go, and potentially the championship up for grabs. WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, we know how much people will talk about the corkscrew. However, you ask me, it's the corner before that, the one that leads you up into the corkscrew, that's more scary. We'll find out what it's got in store for us in a week's time. For now, KB's down in victory lane.
Joined by a winner tonight, Luke McEwen, 2nd victory of the season. You're the only 2-time winner in 2026. You break up a different streak of winners. Luke, we saw that breath of exhale at the end when you crossed the line. How impactful was a win like this given your point situation entering the race? Luke, you got a copy with us? I'm hoping Luke is potentially muted here. Luke, you got a copy with us? All right, well, looks like we don't have Luke right now, but he's celebrating and just debriefing his moments right now in victory lane. But I think just taking it all in, Arjuna, on a very special win, 2nd of the season, but look how close that gets him to Michele Costantini. It's still double digits from coming into this race versus getting out of it entering Laguna Seca, but for McEwen and his road course prowess, there is still very much a chance intact.
Eduardo Leo is the first driver outside the bubble. Yes, with penalty points from race control still yet to be determined from this penultimate round of the championship, but you needed to be within 50 points or so, being realistic. Even 33 for Michael Romanidis is probably a bit too far away, if you ask me. Santini, another good top 10 in the road course section of things, will probably get him that 1 step closer. Let's see if we can chat to his main rival, though. Luke McEwen, now with KB.
All right, 2nd time's the charm, joined by winner Luke McEwen tonight. Luke, we saw that breath of relief as you crossed the start-finish line for the checkered. How impactful was tonight's win, given your point situation going into tonight's race?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was kind of a must-win race for me to get back into the championship. Had a unfortunate crash in the last race, which put me quite far behind, but yeah, I think it was a must-win, and what a great job the team did. Honestly, it was unbelievable. After quali, when we locked out the top 7 places, yeah, amazing feeling, amazing job from everyone.
You and your teammates sailed off in the front, and that was definitely no question, but the battle for the win was still very much there. Past halfway, you pass your teammate to get to the front, Gustavo Ariel, and you just leave him in the dust. You go for the win. What was that moment like when you made that pass off of turn 2 and just establishing your force at the front to hold on to the win?
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to get into the lead. You get fresh air. You've got nothing in front of you. You can just really focus on your own race. Luckily, I managed the tires quite well in the first half of the stint, so I pulled a bit of a gap But like everyone was so fast, I had to really be on my A game for that race. And good pit stop, I managed to pull a bit of a bigger gap, and then it was just really keeping the tires alive because it was so hot, the track. It was really tough.
Last time we were at Laguna Seca, you finished inside the top 10 with a 7th place effort, and of course 10 points behind Costantini going into the finale next week. What do you need to execute in order to be that champion at the very end and take it away from Costantini at the line?
Yeah, I just need to do the best job possible, kind of like what we did here. Just give it my all, and I can't control what he does, so I just need to give it my all, really.
Well, you gave it your all tonight, and it's a race victory, 2nd of the season, with 1 race to go to decide a champion. Luke, congratulations on the win tonight from Mid-Ohio, and best of luck in the finale next week at Laguna Seca. Should be fun.
Thank you. Thank you.
Luke McEwen in his number 96 gets the victory, 2nd of the year, and he's 10 points behind the man we're talking to right now, Michele Costantini, on a 7th place run. But Michele, given your performance on the ovals this season, the buffer was definitely there, and the finishes have definitely continued to show for another top 10 tonight. What did that feel like behind the wheel here at Mid-Ohio?
Yeah, hello everyone. It was a pretty solid race. I think I made the right strategy call, considering where I started. Biko and Vasilios in front of me started on alternates, and Biko finished right ahead of me. But I was happy with taking the less risky strategy. You know, it's much less risky to start with a slower tire and let people by at the start and then catch them back at the end, rather than, you know, fighting people in front. And, you know, obviously I had to pass a lot of red lane cars as well, which would not have made it easy for me. So I just made the call to start on the primes, and turned out to be the right call for where I started. So yeah, as a result, it's pretty good, but we'll have to do better at Laguna to, you know, to end at the top of the standings.
Well, that's where I wanted to turn my attention to. Laguna Seca, final race of the season. Obviously a very difficult track, and one that Redline won last season. So what can you do mentally and obviously on the racetrack to be able to solidify the championship at the end?
Just gonna perform, really. I mean, Luke is super fast, so just gonna try and give it everything this week in training and practicing to be as fast as possible. Gonna try to be up there, because, I mean, I'm giving it for certain that he's gonna win next week, because, as you said, it's quite a good track for Redline, as it showed in the past. So yeah, it's just gonna be about performing, being up there, doing the best as I can, and, you know, try to get as close to him as possible. And, you know, I mean, at the end of the day, even with a P2, it's very close at the end. It goes down to the bonus points, I think, if I finish P2 and he finishes P1. So just gonna perform, give it the best that I have for Laguna, and try to get the win.
Well, it's going to be a scintillating championship fight. I'd say that for the least. Michele, congratulations on the top 10 finish tonight from Mid-Ohio, and looking forward to see you in the field in the finale next week.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Michele Costantini, top 10 finish, 7th on the racetrack. We're joined now by the Drago racing car of Michael Romanidis. And Michael, a top 11 finish here from Mid-Ohio, had to work through a lot of that strategy, and you came down pit road a little bit after being passed by Costantini. What was the big challenge there in that strategy with the primaries on the alternates, given the time difference?
Yeah, I think both strategies were pretty tight. I think it came down to, well, it usually comes down to just how the start kind of goes, especially in the midfield. But we tried to go with a soft, just to do something a little bit different to Redline, as I don't think we had the pace at all in the race or in quality to challenge them, so we just had to try and do something different. And also Michele was starting on the hards, and we just wanted to be a bit more comfortable for the start, to have a bit more grip. But I think in the end it didn't really change the result too much. I personally made a little bit of a mistake. I could have finished 9th at most, which is where Peter finished, which I think is more or less, to be honest, the maximum that our car could do. Especially after quali, we were just lacking so much. So yeah, to be honest, a pretty decent performance. But relative to the other races, just the result is absolutely nowhere. So A little bit disappointing, just seeing where we were coming into this race, and maybe, yeah, expectations were a bit too high. But we'll still keep fighting. We have one more race to go, and hopefully we can keep everyone who's behind still behind us, the Laguna.
That's right. One more chance, still one more race to solidify a good finish at the end. What's that mindset now after Mid-Ohio? Is it be super aggressive? Does the mindset change and strategy change at all entering the final race?
I don't know. I think now with one race to go, it's kind of, mathematical. Every point kind of matters, and just trying to keep the best position possible in the standings. I think more or less the mindset is going to be the same. We'll try and push in the week leading up to the race to try and find the best car possible, because clearly we still have a lot of work to do on these last two races. So yeah, we'll try and build a good car, come back a little bit faster, and try and win the race. That's always the goal. But yeah, pretty tough blow today.
Should be fun, though, at Laguna Seca 1 week from tonight to close out the season. Michael, thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck at Laguna Seca next Thursday.
Thank you very much.
Well, what an interesting penultimate round of this championship, KB, and I really do agree with what Michele just said, which is that if Luke wins the next race, it is going to come down to bonus points. Difference between first and second in this championship at the end of a race is 10 points. What was our gap at the end of the championship standings when we last looked at them?
10 points. Exactly 10 points. That's such fine margins. And like last season, it's going to come down to one race and executing a very difficult Laguna Seca track. And like Michele said also in his interview, Redline has a history of being very good there. Tonight was a demonstration of their prowess when they can get themselves together, qualify well, number one, and then just strategize themselves to block off any opposition and give themselves a higher chance of success. If they can pull that off at Laguna Seca, there is opportunities that are endless for Luke McEwen to step away with a walk-off championship finale, but Michele Costantini has been always so there. He's been so good over the last few races. He's come hot at the right time. So it is going to come down to another classic, Arjuna. This IndyCar series is only, 2 seasons old, and we've had 2 fantastic championship fights in all of them. Couldn't have asked for a better one.
And so you have the former FIA Formula 4 Esports Global Champion going up against Michele Costantini at the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Head back to the Golden Coast and bathe our drivers in some, hopefully, glorious sunshine as we make our way to a historic track, an old school track, and one where mistakes will be punished. Same time, same place, iRacing Esports Network, IndyCar's social channels. Join us next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for our title showdown. But that's going to close it out from here, the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. And thank you to you, our fans, for helping us pick between the Barber Motorsports Park and the wonderful Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. Red line rampant in qualifying, but Costantini does what he needs to. 2 very much fighting for the championship, heading out to next week's title showdown for our team at iRacing. Kenneth Bueno alongside myself, Arjuna Kanki Party. Can't wait to see you there, where we'll crown our second INDYCAR Thrustmaster iRacing Pro Series champion.